You
I don't know how to
ready?
check that.
All right,
Okay,
we're live
now,
now.
yeah. All right.
We're running back, running back. Anyways, hey guys, I'm here
Okay.
with Gio Della Rosa, Giovanni Della Rosa, one of the leaders of downwinding in Puerto Rico, and I've been following him on Instagram for several years now, watching him stuff, watching him grow. Met him briefly out in Hawaii. Just saying what's up to him. Like, hey, that's a guy on Instagram. Hey, what's up, Gio? After the whole Koakai series, Maui to Molokai and Molokai to Oahu, and how that was. But it's funny. We got to know each other real well in France. We had a great time in France. Actually, the way that we became a little bit more like acclimated with each other is after the Crozon race, and it was so tough and it was so difficult. There's no bumps, no wins, and we are basically flat water starting for, was it like 17 Ks, maybe more? It was a good distance,
I
yeah.
think something like that.
And we were just
Yeah.
all
No
exhausted.
less than 14K, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're all exhausted. We're all limping to the finish line. A majority of us had been picked up by Zodiacs and we're getting shuttled to the finish line because it was that bad. And I remember being on our Zodiac and just hearing like shouting from another Zodiac, like, blah, 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 you know. Uh, and it appeared that Geo, as they were
Oh man.
transitioning off the boat, they must have dropped your mask or something. And I'm looking around
Yeah.
at everybody on the boat, and like everyone's like, "Oh, like that's too bad for him." I'm like, "Bro, let's get in the water and help him." I don't know if it was like too
Yeah.
cold or people were just helpless or feeling hopeless, but I ended up jumping in and helping you search, and it's like one of the most exciting things ever when we found your mask after like 5 minutes, and just being like, "Yeah, we got it!" Like, oh man, I've
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
Huge celebration.
yeah, that was
It's like we won the race.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like one of
Yeah.
the highlights of the race, or one of the highlights
Yeah.
of Kazan for me for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
dude, I was so stoked, and
It's
yeah,
actually a brand new mast. I had just gotten it before heading to France.
dude,
It was like the newer version of the code mast, which is
uh,
like stiffer and all, all this that stuff. And then yeah, so I did horribly in that race, and I got in the Zodiac, and then more and more people were getting on, so they made us take all our gear apart. And yeah, in the transfer between the boat driver and me, like I just had my foil in one hand, my paddle in another. The board didn't have a mast or a foil on it, so these boards without like they're already tippy enough.
yeah,
So without
oh
a
yeah,
foil on it, it's just like so I was sitting on the board. It's like a 17-inch wide Kalama, and I just basically had nothing under it. So when I went to grab my mast, I just flipped over, and everything basically went
hard
to
sale.
hell.
Dang.
Yeah, pretty much yard sale. But what's funny is like I gave up on it instantly because I'm so used to being in deep water. Anytime I lose something at home, it's like it's gone. Like you're never seeing that thing again. Like it's over.
Yeah,
And yeah, so like just kind of got really animated about the whole thing, and you heard me, and just like, man, I was like, man, this guy's coming to the rescue. Like it's like, okay, let me calm down and help him out because that would, that's like we got four eyes are better than two,
yeah,
And then when you spotted it, man, I was just like, I couldn't believe how close it was to the surface of the water. It was literally like when I had to take my vest off
yeah. I remember that,
and I swam down to get it. It was like less than 10 feet
dude.
deep, like
Dude,
super
bro, we
close.
were raging though. I
Uh,
just remember like
oh, dude.
screaming. The people on the boats were stoked, and we got to the beach. We were just sharing that story
Yeah.
with everybody, and everyone's so stoked. But yeah, good times in France. I'm sure we'll get into that. But um, yeah, man, I'm always curious and genuinely want to hear people's origin stories because foiling is such a special and unique sport, and everybody's story is super cool. Whether you're like a pro
Yeah.
surfer or just a lifelong surfer, or you have zero surfing background, in order to climb that mountain and get to where we are, it's each journey is amazing and beautiful. So um what was it, or tell me a little bit about yourself before foiling and how you got into foiling, and about your home, man.
All right, yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, in the metro area, San Juan area. Um, I kind of always had an attraction to the ocean. It was every time we would go close to the water, I would kind of like I was that kid that would like zone out and just be like, what am I even looking at? Really a ton of time, water sports wise as a kid, because we lived further inland. So it wasn't until way later that I got into surfing when I was like 16 or so. Super late start, I guess, in uh, normal. Like I feel like a lot of people that start surfing start pretty young. Um, but foiling didn't come around for me until way later. Like, I've just turned 40 this past year, so I started kiting. Kiting was my first sort of like wind sport.
Right.
I had never really done like windsurfing or sailing, um, canoeing. Um, so, but that's how it started for me. Like, kiting was the first wind vessel, and eventually that's how I got onto a foil. Um, there's a weird beep going on back here. It's my neighbor. Sorry. Uh,
Sorry, I can't hear any.
so yeah. So in terms of figuring out how to foil, like the first foil that I had was a super old school one. It was a Carafino, which Mango Carafino is like, from Hawaii, designing foils in the early days. Um, and it was super ultra low aspect, like this super heavy. It's kind of like a metal anchor, like dragging around a metal anchor. The mast must have been like 5 feet long. So
Well,
so
what year is this, Gio? How
oh,
many
this
years
is
ago?
like 2016, something like 2000. No, no, earlier, 2015 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So I bought this secondhand, and I didn't know like anything about foils. I think, you already had some pretty decent foils going around from like Lift, and probably Armstrong, I think was maybe already in the game by then. Um, but we didn't really have access to a lot of that stuff here until way later. I mean, Lyft, obviously, you had access to it because they're built here in Puerto Rico. But I didn't really, I don't know, just at that time, I was kind of like, man, I don't know what this foiling thing is about. I'm gonna buy the cheapest one I could get my hands on and see what this is about. If I like it, then, I'll keep going. But yeah, kiting was my intro to foiling, but I would say that it wasn't until I learned to downwind that I really understood what foiling is. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like kiting or winging, they are super fun and they are their own discipline, but I feel like to really truly learn how to be efficient on a foil, you have to not have something to hold on to.
Right.
Uh, so like proning is another good example of like a discipline that will really get you good at being efficient on a foil.
Hmm.
But I never proned. I never proned before downwinding. I just went straight
Dang.
from the kite and the winging into downwinding.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it started, what was it? July of 2023. I was actually going to start proning. Um, and I met this guy on the beach that had this weird, super long, slim board with a foil on it, and he was paddling around. That's Roy Young, his name, and we didn't know each other back then. But he was learning; he was starting his journey, and I was like, "Yeah, that's weird. It's like I've never seen what like a super long 8 foot board with a foil and a paddle. Like it's like never seen that before." And he told me about downwinding, and I just kind of went home and looked it up. And actually, coincidence wise, the first thing that I looked up, the first video that came up on YouTube was one of your videos. I think it's titled like making the case for downwind subfoiling.
Mm-hmm.
Old school. Like this is old school. Like, in that video, you guys are riding like, I don't know, 6 foot boards
Yeah.
or something like, um, but immediately I knew like, okay, I don't know, something about how the way that you described it being this sort of, prolonged journey that you have to completely commit to and be, consistent about, you know, uh, getting better every day, going and doing it and doing it. Um, I was burnt out on all the other water sports because they felt just kind of like, I don't know, like too powered up, I guess, like not, I don't want to call them easy because that's not what, I'm not trying to take anything away from like winging or kiting. It's just, you know, you have to with downwinding, you kind of have to, make your own path and build your own power. And it really is such a journey because you got to build your cardio and your strength and like, it happens over time. Like, got to figure out timing. There's all this stuff. And I just fell in love with the idea of it. So that's how it ended up happening. So it's been a year and a half now.
You've only been down with it for a year and a half.
Yeah, it's been a year and a half.
Dang.
July of 2023. July 18th was my first day. I remember. I remember the first, like I did a short little run by myself. The guys that were downwinding here in Puerto Rico had gone up to Hood River for like, I don't know, I don't think it was, yeah, it was just like, oh, you remember 2 years ago, the races were a little different. And they had the Hood River race.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was M2O a little bit later, or I don't know if it was the other way around. But they went and they did that race, and so I stayed down here. I didn't know anything about downwinding yet, so I had just bought this used setup, super old foil that's like it's like I've super thick. I don't even know what it's called. It's an old Axis setup that I had, which is what I used for kiting and winging, and just started from there, man. And honestly, you know what? I became completely obsessed. It
Yeah.
was kind of weird. Um, yeah, that's
It's mandatory and it's necessary in the journey. I mean, it's one of the healthiest obsessions ever, right?
yeah,
I think yeah, like you
yeah.
mentioned, one of the beautiful things about foiling is that here we are, like adult males in our peak, right? I'm in my mid 30s, you're in your 40s, and like we're supposed to know it all already, but here's this sport, and it's just so yeah, like addicting because literally every session, every second, every wave, every time you pump, you're just learning something and getting better, and it's so rewarding, and it's just the journey never stops, and like you said, like you know how many times we've popped up over the years. Every single time you pop up, it's still like satisfying and gratifying. You're like, yes, I popped up.
I
Whether it was
remember. Yeah,
challenging or using a smaller foil or a smaller board, or you know what I mean. It's using different setups. Like it's that kind of never goes away. That stoking gratification.
I'm still like every time that I don't know if this was built through the early process of learning to downwind, but now I find myself in situations all the time where I'm like, okay, I've reached that next little thing. Now I need to make it harder again.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it recently with like small boards and small foils, small fuses, small tails. Like I'm just making it like harder on myself, which is kind of masochistic in a way, but at the same time, every what's surprising about that is that every time that at least in my experience, every time I've made it harder on myself, I overcome it and I become better at the
Better.
sport.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
not just for the sake of being, hard-headed or wanting it to be difficult or wanting to like have a high heart rate or just not. It's just that I've noticed a pattern. Every time I push in the direction of, oh, this isn't possible, it's actually very possible. And not only that, it opens the next door, it's kind of like just a forever uh door
Forever
opening and
learning,
closing,
man. Yeah,
yeah. It's
it's
like the
amazing.
curve keeps going.
Yeah. It,
Man, I used to remember, I remember being proud of going out in days early on in my journey where I had to do 15 paddle ups to get home, to make it to the end. And that's obviously that's like a such a weird flex because you're still that means you kind of suck at foiling, like but on the other side of it, I was like, oh, I've got the paddle up dialed, man. I've practiced it so much because I suck at reading the bumps. Like I can't read for any like to save my life. So I don't know. And then every time it becomes something else. Like now, if I do 20 miles without falling, dude, I'm stoked.
Mhm.
That's almost never happens for me, but there's always little nuggets, man, little nuggets.
It's kind of fun, yeah, when you're learning like that because I mean, yeah, we go through all the feels of just you kind of go into like survival mode. You're scared. You're in a state of like somewhat fear because you're, way out to sea
Mm.
and you don't know if you're going to make it, but we end up making it. And it's, like I said, it's so good for us all around, like physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, it's amazing, man. But like I said, I'm still blown away that you've only been downwinding for a year and a half, and but that's what's so cool about this. It's like we feel like we've been downwinding. Like for me, I've been downwinding since maybe I got into foiling in 2019 and started downwinding in 2020, maybe. But that felt like 10 years ago, and I'm sure for you,
Yeah.
like, a year and a half is not that long ago, but man, there's just so much things that stages you've gone through, it's like you could damn well write a book, like
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's possible. Um, I like when I say that I went all in, it's like I don't know. I guess many people will have a different version of what all in is, but I was literally paddling, if not every day,
yeah.
like,
So
it was like
so
single-minded focus. Like, I mean, I still
so
had to work and do and live my life, but I would make time for that
yeah.
specifically, whether it was going out into little waves at first or just flat water paddling, just to like learn to paddle straight and get better at like the cardio aspect of things by practicing flat water paddle ups and stuff.
Yeah.
Just I just gave it all,
So
It's-
I mean, that's one of the other things too that I admire about you and like people in their own little corners of the earth is especially when they're on this journey and they're on the journey by themselves, just kind of bushwhacking and just trekking the whole way, a lot of us, like for a handful of us who was, that got into it at the same time, like I said, we were riding those 6 foot boards, and at the time we wanted to go shorter because we thought that that was the way. So we were in a sense bushwhacking, but at least we had some mates to just bushwhack and just explore the jungle with. But
yeah.
like it's cool, man. Like I give guys like you tons of props because you're out there and you're just, dude, man, we're just like modern explorers, So explain to me, man. Like, yeah, I give you guys I give you props a lot because it looks like a lot of times when you go on your runs, it's just solo or like you've had
Yeah.
to endure this journey by yourself, and so just to help
Yeah.
inspire and encourage people around the world. Yeah. So what was that like for you? Like, or like, how did you become a successful downwinder?
Hmm. I guess a lot of persistence, yeah. Um, and a lot of, I mean, look, you get good at what you practice, man.
Yeah.
Like it's simple. You know, pick a topic. I've been playing guitar for 30 years, I'm pretty good at guitar, because I practice a lot. I mean, but when something is really difficult, it can sometimes be off-putting. And in our case, in PR, like I think um there's some challenges that make it a little bit difficult in terms of like we're more spread out. Like people are further apart from one another. So to get a crew going is a little bit more challenging, I would say, here than in a place like Oahu or Maui, where like you've got two runs, you
Yeah.
know, that's where everyone's going. So here you've got like people out east, you've got people out west, north, south, and it's like, hours of driving and stuff. Um, so, a lot of times either it doesn't line up for people to do the shuttling and you kind of have to go do something else, or conditions, aren't great here, but they're really good over there. For me, I think I heard Josh Koo say this somewhere along my journey, and he just said like I think he was on a podcast with I can't remember who right now, but he's just one of the things he said is like, look, just good conditions are absolutely wasted on you when you're starting out. Like you need to go like on pretty much anything on that isn't like, dangerous for you,
That's very true.
if it's like, double overhead and like 40 knots, like don't go, like that's might be kind of, alone at least. But I just kind of took that pretty seriously to heart, and I would go everything from like 10 knots to 20 knots. It didn't matter. North swell, west swell, east swell, no swell, it doesn't matter. And I suffered a lot. I had a lot of bad runs. It took me a long time. Same like, I think I didn't get on foil easily for the first 10 runs I did. Easily. Like that, it was a struggle. But then when I did, it was like, okay, I'm starting to figure it out. And once I learned to read the bumps, now what happens is because of all that groundwork that I did, I was ready for the days that are good.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want is the good day to come around and you're like unfit to paddle up or whatever it is. And now you have a bad time on the days that are good. That sucks even more.
Yeah.
Like that sucks a lot more than having a bad time on a bad day. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, it was pretty much hard-headedness and just going and going and going. And I did. I've got all of my runs recorded. They're all, like water speed will put it's all like red when you're going slow and green when you're going fast. Like I have a ton of all red and orange runs, like no green anywhere. Um, they're out there, man.
Yeah.
But and I had, like this was what it took a little bit longer because when I started in July, there was like a couple of good weeks of wind, and then August rolled around, and September and October there was like no wind. And so I was like, look, I can't not go. Like at least go and paddle. Like doesn't matter. Like there's going to be no wind, so I'm just going to go paddle around. And yeah, eventually when the wind came back around, started to pick up, and you feel good. Like you feel fit about what you're doing. Like you can stand on your board, you can paddle up and not be like completely dead by the first paddle up.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just little bits, I guess.
With knowing what you know now, would you give yourself any tips in your journey, or you think it was like a perfect journey and everything was appropriate and necessary?
Get a coach.
Yeah.
Do the camp, do the coaching, do the James Casey Club, whatever it is. Like, there's many versions of it, I think, but I think there's more value in any of that stuff than in any particular like gear purchase, for example. Maybe there's might be some things that are like, try not to go learn on a 5'8" by 18 under like sinker board, like make it as easy as possible on yourself. But I remember that the times when I improved the most was when I had someone that had already done it to bounce ideas off of. And I had a couple of guys here that helped me out. And then, just all of the all of the information that I could find um, on figuring this formula about downwinding out was like I was just gobbling it up.
Mhm.
But you can like I guess there's a balance point. Like doing the way that I did it, which was like, just going every day and figuring it out, and then combining that with like useful information that will help you speed up the
Guidance and
process.
direction. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because for me, like for like uh the people that downwinded that that knew me and that were around here were telling me already, like, look, you know, you're completely disregarding the timing, and you're just paddling, and then when you gas yourself out and you get frustrated, and you're not like, when you get super gassed out because you couldn't paddle up, sit down on your board. Like just let your
Cover.
heart rate come back down, recover. And I wouldn't do that. So like little bits and pieces of information that people that have come before you already know because they went through it. Like take the advice, and take the coaching, do the camp. I think it's the best way, honestly.
Yeah, it's for all of us who were cut from that cloth and we had to learn the hard way. I'm super grateful for that because you learn so many invaluable lessons on so many things. Yeah, like just simple things like that, just resting, recovering, making sure your
Yeah.
gear is correct,
Yeah.
timing and everything,
Yeah.
conditions, what's possible.
Yeah.
But realistically too, like learning the hard way isn't for everybody, you know, and,
Mm.
you know, but the people who have learned the hard way, like you can just tell they're just, man, they're humble. They got the grit, like they're stubborn in a good, healthy way. Uh,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's still gonna be hard. Like,
yeah, it's
so
not easy.
yeah, it's just gonna point you, it's just gonna like remove a lot of mysterious little bits and pieces that kind of sometimes take a long time to remove the wrinkles out of. So like, I don't know. I At first I didn't know what bracing was with a paddle, for example. Like I learned that from Jeremy Riggs, like just how to stand on the board and like just use the paddle as a
Kickstand.
tool for
Yeah.
as your kickstand, as a tool to keep balance. And the first day I paddled out, I didn't like, it's such a small detail. It's almost completely obvious that anyone would actually do that completely naturally, but I wasn't. I was holding the paddle like this, like in my, and just falling right over.
Yeah.
So, and there's little bits and pieces like that. Like right now, I'm actually uh, coaching my uh, my jiu-jitsu sensei, and he has no foiling background
Mhm.
at all. Uh, he's done some canoeing and stuff, and some downwinding, but it's been such a what do you call it? It's just uh, seeing someone that doesn't have any idea what it feels like to foil go into this process full on. Like this guy is not gonna quit, dude.
Yeah.
He's 100% in. And so to me, it's just like, oh man, I'm gonna give him like all of the little like
Okay.
nuggets of information that'll help, get him over.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a huge help.
Jiu-jitsu is such a fascinating analogy because I see it as like
Yeah.
just just like so many parallels, like identical, and it's funny, it's like your jujitsu teacher is black belt probably, and
Mm.
he's not going to quit because he's a black belt, and
Yeah.
he understands how
Yeah.
important it is to drill, and do all the micro fundamentals and put in the time, and just know that
Yeah.
the ocean is the mats, and the ocean is a black belt, and like
Yeah.
you as a white belt, like like, man, I'm never gonna come close to tapping out this black belt for years, maybe
Mm.
a
Mm.
decade, where
Maybe never.
maybe never,
Yeah.
and but it's like this fascinating parallel, and it's so cool because a lot of us out here in Hawaii, and across the world, like foilers will do jujitsu, and it's so funny. We just banter back and forth of how similar it is. And so I'm stoked that you're getting into it. I would say for you, like, just for jujitsu, it's exactly like foiling, but take care of your
Cool.
body. Don't get any unnecessary injuries because we love to foil.
Yeah.
Um, but enjoy that process, man. It's constant learning, just like foiling. It's like,
I already am. You know what's it's so similar, and I kind of have this uh the way that it's just really close to the beginning of my downwind journey being a year and a half ago, and now literally a month ago I've started like learning jujitsu. So I'm at the ground most basic, like lowest level of everything there. So I don't know, it's just really close to something that I've already felt in terms of being a beginner again. And with this, however, I think this is going to be a slower process, and one that I really want to. I want it to be slow.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't want to. I think with downwinding, I was like, man, this is it. Like I want this. I need to figure this out. Like so, I'm gonna go every single day and like But with jujitsu, I I think I have too much respect for how deep it all goes
Mhm.
to think that in a year and a half I'll be like equivalently good as I am at downwinding. Like not no way. There's just so much more going on and I'm really excited about it.
Jiu-jitsu is a
Yeah,
lifelong journey, man.
exactly, exactly,
It,
exactly.
it's beautiful, and it's like, but yeah, just there's so much things, man. Just, yeah, just being efficient, breathing, flowing, yeah,
Yeah.
respect the techniques, and just, bro, there's so much. I'm stoked for you, man, and it's it's cool. But then,
Should
yeah,
be
like,
fun.
yeah, no, that's awesome because, like, now as you're teaching your professor or your sensei or whatever, it's cool because, like, now you're like becoming hyper aware of the techniques and the methods that are applicable, and that actually
Mm,
work. You know what I mean? And when you break things down that systematically, you like understand it so much better. So
yeah.
now that you just got to think, when you're doing jujitsu, it's like, that move works because this, and this, and it's the
Mm.
reaction is this, and that, and it all it all flows, and it's all a chain, and it's everything has a reason, and it's you look at it in downwinding. Yeah, I guess too. It's like, yeah, you in a way you can't rush downwinding. Like, you're not going to go out, like you said, on a 40 knot day with large swell on your first day
Mm.
because you want to and it's going to be fun. Like, no ways,
Yeah.
man. You gotta
Yeah.
get out in the flight. Your balance has got to be good. Okay, how's your paddling? Your
Yeah.
paddling's got to be good. Okay,
Yeah.
how's your pop up and your attack? Is your attack good? Okay. Well, what about when you get on foil? Like, do you know where to go when you're on foil? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no rushing it
It's
too.
endless.
It's
Yeah.
endless. And then when you start changing your gear and foiling in different places, to me, like, that's what's crazy. It's like, a lot of us here in Hawaii, we think we're, like, top dogs and this and that. And then we go to like different places, and it's just an entirely different energy, a different bump, a different approach, you got to use different gear. And it's
Yeah.
it's constantly humbling, just like jujitsu.
Dude,
There's
I asked. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's
That
nothing there's
totally.
nothing that humbles you and just makes you feel so hopeless,
I
when
had such a humbling experience with going to different places to downwind. Like because you get so used to what you know, like you kind of take you almost even take it for granted because you know the route perfectly. It's like I don't even have to look where I'm going. Like I could just close my eyes and feel what's happening, and I know where I am on the run.
Yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
know, so but when you try like Hawaii, man, that was and France too, both. But I think Hawaii was the first real experience of real power in the
Yeah.
water. Like I mean, I don't want to say real power. Like we've had some powerful runs here, but it's just it's not the same. There's a different level of deep water energy happening, and
Hmm.
and this goes for like everything from Maui to the Hawaii Kai run and then North Shore run, which I did as well on Oahu. So it's just I couldn't believe it. Like just you hear about it, you hear people talk about it, but it's just nothing quite like it, I think,
You can't relate until you're actually out there in the water and you're feeling
until
it.
you're in it. Yeah, once you're in it, it's just man, I remember my first Maliko run was a light Maliko run. It was like 17 knots, which is
It's light for Maui, yeah.
uh, that's super light for Maui.
Average.
For me, if I see 17 knots, I'm celebrating here at home. Like, so, and I remember finishing that run and being so stoked. And people at the dock were like, this guy doesn't know what he's gotten himself into because, like, in 2 days, it's going to be 25 or 30 knots. And they were exactly right. Like, I had no idea, man. Like, there was just the water like coming out like just the when it's really windy that water just kind of the mist that blows up from the surface
Yeah.
that
Smoke.
never happens here, like I think I saw that for the first time like 2 days ago. I did a really long run with a friend of mine on the West Coast, and finally some proper wind has been filling into PR. But that was the first time I'd seen that. I was just like, water is literally being pulled out from the surface. Like this is real wind, This is what it is. Oh man, that was incredible. But just I don't know, something's up in Hawaii, man. It's just like it really does feel like Jurassic Park or something. It's like just so raw, and uh, the water just has a different. You feel it, you feel it in like your soul almost. It's like this water has been coming from a long way, and it's coming with a lot of power, and
Mhm.
it's just it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then in France, I think the biggest aspect of France for me was dealing with the cold. Man, that stuff is hard.
Yeah.
I respect to our cold water uh brethren,
Voyagers.
man.
Yeah.
Like for real. You guys are the real heroes, I think. Like, you got like people like I think like John Mann, some of the crew in the UK. I'm blanking on names right now, but I see this all the time. People are wearing like 5 mil wetsuits. You got like Ed in New Jersey. Uh, just yeah, how like I was wearing a spring suit and freezing, like completely frozen. I just couldn't like feel my hands. I couldn't paddle up. I couldn't feel my feet. It's just it's crazy. I mean, you get used to it, I guess, but as a newcomer, it's kind of a shock
Yeah.
to feel that and to try and perform at the same time. So I get used to it.
Yeah, the I've always said too, the level of commitment those guys have to go out there in like the most uninviting conditions, dark, gloomy waters and skies, and just cold waters, and they're out there making their offshore
Yeah, man.
investments as much as I mean, we got it made and easy, right? We got blue waters,
Yeah,
sunshine, and
tropical.
more. Yeah,
There's also a much more, well, I guess to me, it felt like much more complicated logistics because I mean, you just like here at home, like I don't have to worry about what clothes are waiting for me in the car. Like I just get in my car. There's a towel there. I just yeah, we're good. Like, dude, cold water, you got to have a fresh set of clothes waiting for you at the end of the run. You got to have your coat that's going to be there for you too when you get out. Like just a bunch of stuff that already logistics feel like they're hard enough. Like imagine tacking on all this other stuff. Um, and like also, learning in those conditions. I imagine like, look, sometimes I did some runs when I was learning that took me like 3.5 hours to get out of the water.
Yeah.
In cold water, I don't know if you're doing that, like just like if it's really windy and really, really cold, like maybe I'll learn in the summertime or travel
Yeah.
somewhere and learn.
Yeah.
At least for me, I'm warm-blooded, man. Like I get cold fast. So.
I think that's one of the important things in learning too is just having the opportunity to go as much as you can, right? Because
Yeah.
in the beginning, if you don't have a lot of opportunities, like each time you're on the water, you're kind of like revisiting and just kind of recapping what you learned previously. It's kind of like jujitsu too, right? Like if you only go 1 day a week in jujitsu while you're learning, you forget things. Like maybe your like coordination isn't there, or yeah, you're just not smooth. Um, and it's yeah, man, I think I mean not to like plug the camps, but I think that's what's super good about having like a camp format or just having like a coach, just
Mm.
be in your ear, but and give you coaching. But having a camp, it's like it's cool because I remember talking to guys and they just didn't have the opportunity to get hours on the water at a time because they're just busy with work life or just yeah, just conditions. It just doesn't allow. But just having 4 or 5 days in a row where we're getting like 3 hours on the
Yeah.
man, you can really like chip away at that learning progress.
The guys that went from here to the first one were really stoked on it, man. I mean, they were immediately like when they caught back here, just the improvement was easily noticeable, and they were going like I think the thing with that is like when you cross a certain barrier of like
it's like playing
what you're
guitar,
able
bro.
to do. Yeah.
Like
It
once you
just
crack the
it
code,
steamrolls. You
yeah,
take it into the next thing and you just keep carrying that momentum and you keep getting better
yeah.
and now they're actually paddling. They're both I think it was two guys that went
Tito,
Tito and Jose, and now they're both transitioned from because I think they did I don't know if they both did the camp and foil drive or those are details beyond me, but they're both like getting better with the paddle now on larger boards, and so like they're really into it. And we've found a pretty good spot down here that is super good for learning. Like it's a lot of our runs on the North Shore are like really far out to sea. We have to get out through headlands and like, it to learn here, it's like you kind of have to be ready for a miserable experience for
yeah,
a while. And some people want that. Some people don't have time for that. Some people like, kind of need to have a more systematic thing where it's like, look, it's going to take 2 hours. Okay, that's it. Like, okay, let's do it. So we found a little spot down here on the south coast of PR that it's like a little cove. It's like 1 or 2 miles. There's two runs. There's a 1 mile run and a 2 mile run, and it's super close to shore. No outer reef stuff, and it gets really windy.
wow.
And the bumps are like super clean. So I think it's like a spot that we might be starting to like use to get new and more people. Like just recently, so I went to this spot like I don't know, 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, something like that, to just check it out. And I did 2 laps, like 1 mile run, 2 laps, and I was like, this is gonna work. And that day was light. It's kind of like a bay run.
Mhm.
Um, but it's on a beach. And the next day, I took a couple of the guys that were still kind of progressing from the east coast of the island, and instantly they were like, okay, like a lot of stuff made sense here that we weren't like realizing, because a place like that allows you to take the intimidation factor out of the equation and just focus on what the technique is and what you have to do to paddle up.
Yeah.
And there's an advantage to that, to being able to have that. So like you were talking, I think you mentioned earlier, the north coast of Brazil. You're gonna see a lot of that there too. Like a lot of the runs are probably
Close to
really
shore.
close to shore and super lined up bumps and really like, just kind of clean, and you don't have this element of like, whoa, if I fall down or my foil breaks, like where do I get out? Like, how do what are the exit points? And, I don't know if I just kind of like want to just rest and relax. Like, so I don't know. There's something to that, um, in terms of like
Being
beginner,
comfortable,
beginner.
being comfortable in
Yeah.
the water, so you can focus on your technique rather than focus on like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is sketchy.
Yeah.
Rocks, there's waves,
Yeah.
coastline. Like what, like I'm
Yeah.
committed. Do I
Yeah.
have enough water? Do I have enough
Yeah. I
energy?
mean, that's another, I mean, in and of itself, that is a skill to be able to remain calm in
Mhm.
deep water and wild conditions. That's like its own skill. And I guess I I already had that because I had been, surfing and kiting, and I've been in bad situations in those sports before. But you got to consider that there are people getting into downwind that don't have that experience. They're out in lakes, or they're out, like, you know, they're not used to that kind of punishment from Mother Nature,
Yeah.
And she's out. That's another set of skills that you can get over. So yeah, it's just so many ways to tackle this monster of a sport,
Yeah.
to figure it out. You know.
So, looking ahead to, this year we have ahead of us and tackling this monster,
Oh man.
what
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you like? You mentioned earlier, like you're challenging yourself by riding smaller boards and smaller foils.
Oh yeah.
What do
That
you feel like,
started.
yeah, what do you feel
Yeah.
like you've learned from that? And like what are your plans for 2025 in this upcoming year?
I learned that I can't understand how people were going through the learning phase of downwinding on such short boards. Uh, that's the first thing I learned. These short boards, I mean, like, it's totally doable. I'm not trying to scare anyone away from it, and it's actually been winding is going down uh board size. Because at first, like I went, okay, I'm gonna go long because I want to go down foil sizes, and that was valuable too, super valuable, because riding small foils is like its own little mystery. So let me make it easy on myself by using a really long board, and it worked. It did the job. But once I got comfortable, like on something like a 680, for example, from Code, which is probably my favorite foil. I figured, like maybe the next stage is uh, bringing the board size down. And I remember being in Hawaii. The first two runs I did on Maui were Kihei runs, and I met this guy from Australia there. Um, why am I blanking on people's names right now? Julian.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And Julian was like, we're all, oh, we got our new, like, we've got our like super long boards. Here we go. Like, we're in Hawaii. And Julian's got this like 6 foot board. And I'm looking at him like, what is this guy doing? Like, it's just like, and he's on a super tiny foil, of course, like a 720S or something. But man, all of that changed when I saw him riding. I was just like, wow, like this guy's so free to do whatever he wants on that thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't, you know, I think that stayed in my mind for a while, but it wasn't until way later that I got home and really started to like think about it. I first went down to a 7.4 Kalama that I still have. Great board. Um, and started kind of just like experimenting that. And then I did this thing in September where I used only the 680 for the entire month, no matter what the conditions were. And I had some bad runs, but I had a lot of really good ones. And I learned a lot about using a small foil in marginal conditions. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bite the bullet. So I wrote Julian and I'm like, look, what do you think about this board? It's like a 6'6", 88 liter. I'm 77, 78 kilograms. Um, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm like 10 or 11 liters or whatever above your weight in kilos. And he said he's a little shorter than me. He said he was on like a 6'4" or 6'2", something like that. So I just pulled the trigger, man, and I'm not gonna lie, like when the first day that I got on, it took me an hour to paddle up. Like it was hard. It was really hard. Like, and then the next day it took me 30 minutes. And then the next time after that, it took me 10 minutes. And now it takes me a minute or two, sometimes five, if it's like really the big drawback I think about the small board for me in my conditions is whenever you get into like backwash. And if you fall in backwashy areas, it's kind of tough. And
Hard to
you'll get it.
balance.
You'll
Yeah, hard to balance.
yeah. It's hard to put down power, right? Because you can't balance as well. And you'll get it eventually. That one good bump comes around, and you get it. But in normal conditions, like just today, I went out and did a run, and I came down, and I paddled up in less than 30 seconds. Like you figure it out. It just becomes
The small board,
like
it almost like you're able to really compress it and ollie it up, and really
yeah,
manipulate it more with your
yeah.
legs than you are
It's
like paddling into a bump.
yeah, and it tracks a lot less. So you can kind of adjust your route
Yeah.
much easier. So like
Pinball
say
and find the right bump, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and just boom, like it's just kind of you can move it around way easier. But I mean, look, the balancing part is the hardest part, but I've figured it out, and honestly, it's so much fun to ride uh, a shorter board for me at least. It's a lot of fun. It just feels so like I don't know, tiny, I guess, small. It's like a sense of freedom, I guess, in turning and stuff.
Even
And so for the oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, even like riding us like I've done that a few times where I ride the small board, but I'll put a
Mm,
big wing on it. So like I kind of like neutralize the difficulty
mm,
of popping it up. But then man, like when you get up, it just feels like a big single fin and you just crank turns and it's beautiful. Like
yeah,
because I think a lot of times, we're thinking like, okay, when we pop up these small boards, it's going to be real easy to pump and keep up those small boards. But try it, man. Like try throw on a big wing on there and just feel how like
yeah.
so
Oh, dude, it turns a big foil into a much more fun experience, I think. Yeah, because like you've eliminated a ton of swing weight, so that foil will just feel a lot less of the R series, everything from the 1075 to the 600, which recently came out. And I was so surprised by how it felt to do the 960, which to be honest, I hadn't really fallen in love with as a foil for PR conditions yet. I used it in France as well, and it helped me out on that uh, in a few situations over there where I needed a bigger wing. But like here, usually I'm somewhere in between like the 860 and the 680. That's like my bread
range.
and butter.
Yeah.
Um, but one day so like that. through the journey of learning to paddle up the small board, I took out the 960 one day, and it was surprisingly easy to paddle that one up. Like, just like I couldn't believe it. I was like, all right, so big foil small board is actually way more doable than I expected.
Yeah.
You can paddle it up quite easy. Um, for someone that's already like, I wouldn't say go as a beginner, here you go. Like, but it was way easier than say like trying to paddle up the 770 with that board. Um, and it was a super fun run. Just really turny. I don't know. Just it's endless, man. I kind of now I'm thinking of going smaller even. I don't know if that's going to be like uh you know another kind of rabbit hole that I'll go down. But I'll probably keep the volume the same, but I do want to try even shorter boards. I'm on a 6'6" now. I want to try a 6 foot board.
Damn.
So that'll or maybe 6'2" or something. I don't know. I feel like it needs to be a little more drastic to really kind of feel the difference.
Yeah.
So like 6 foot, 5'10", it might end up being like a terrible disaster, but I'd rather try than
I think in places like Hood River, where
mm,
the goal isn't to go fast and you're just doing turns and you're ripping turns, and the
yeah,
bumps are
yeah,
so close and steep and stacked close together that, man, like that's the dream board that you want to be on. Like something under 6'6" for sure. And
yeah.
it's
Right?
but then also too, like, like I've gone out on and I've experienced this. You can't go out on big, those 30, 40 knot days. You can't go out on Maliko on a 6'6". I mean, you could, but it's just your experience is going to be that much more difficult because the smaller
Yeah.
board can't really
Yes.
keep up with the big bumps, or the fast
Yeah.
moving bumps, or it seems to like sink more than it normally does.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like you gotta there is no paddle speed to these boards. It's I think what you asked me what I learned about it, I think, and you would expect this, is that it forces you to be impeccable
With
with
your
your
timing.
timing.
Yeah.
You have to be at least this is my experience at home where you on point with your timing. If the timing is right,
Yeah.
don't even try. Like that's not because you know how like bigger boards will let you get away with a lot. Like you have necessarily to have this super perfect timing because you can kind of you know not
Right.
have your timing. But yeah, it's fun regardless, I guess. I
Yeah.
saw you in Hood River. You were riding that little F1 board, right? The one that
Yeah, that board.
Kiahoitis rides.
Yeah, that board was a 6'6" 80 liter board, and I'm
Wow.
probably like 82 key.
So it's like a sinker pretty much for
Dude,
you.
I stood up. I mean, I was like, just to get a little bit better internet connection. But yeah, I stood up and I was pretty much like, it sank right up to my knees. Like it took like 5 or 6 super hard strokes to like even level the board.
Yeah, yeah,
And then by the time that you're standing, and there's no, like, on a normal board or bigger board, you can kind of just stand and wait and just kind of paddle nonchalantly and wait for your bump. Whereas on
mm,
these on that small board, for me, in my experience, I was like actually like stroking it hard
yeah,
just to keep planing and keep going. And
yeah,
so, like,
yeah,
I remember that was like a big obstacle for us learning, is that if a bump didn't come within the first 20 seconds, you would be gassed from pure
yeah,
exhaustion.
yeah,
And you'd be gassed, or like, like it was so hard for us to keep those boards straight, and we would like, because
yeah,
they're so short, and like you paddle, they don't track, and like if you
They don't track at all.
if a bump doesn't come in like 20 seconds, you're like facing one way and you're like, and you got to sit back down. But it's definitely nice when you're up and everything. Um, but yeah, no, I remember when we are coaching in camp, and I got this. I mean, it's like a Conor McGregor quote, or it's like a quote you can just kind of apply to anything, really. It's what is it? Precision beats power and timing beats speed, you know? And it's
Mhm.
you can just apply that in popping up, like you don't need power if you're precise and you go at the right moment, or you don't need a lot
Yeah,
of speed if your timing is perfect, and it's
yeah.
just it's and that's how it is, when we look back and we're learning, we're trying to force it, and just we're applying all the power, not at the precise moment, or
Yeah.
we think we have the speed and we're trying to generate the speed, but we have zero timing and it just doesn't work, and kind
Well,
of
I mean, both.
go ahead.
I'll just say like both of those things require patience, and that's like I think patience to wait for that right moment. Like a lot of times you think it's there and your impatient mind is gonna go for it. It's telling you, "Oh, this is the like go for it." But if you just like stay and okay, it's been what 2, 3 minutes. Who cares?
Yeah,
Who cares? Like doesn't matter. It's 2 or 3 minutes.
yeah,
Like be patient. And if you're in a race, obviously like that changes, right? Like in a race, you're fine tuning your gear so that it's all
pop it up
about
right away. Yeah,
instant. Yeah, right. So, but we're talking about like just fun downwinding, just having fun and learning that. Just be patient, relax, let it come to you.
yeah. It's kind of like every wave doesn't barrel, but like every wave
Yeah.
you stand up, you're not like crouching down trying to get barreled. Like you just know that when you see the wave that it's
Yeah.
gonna throw over and barrel, then you get into
It's
barrel stance. You don't just like
yeah.
get in,
Yeah.
take off on a wave and barrel stance and just like expect to get barreled
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
every.
It's always gonna barrel every single time and
Yeah,
you're gonna come out spit out every single time.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's just so for like today I did a run and I fell a few times and one of my paddle ups was literally like 4 strokes and another one was like 17, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like I timed that one wrong, like and then I kind of like hustled my way out of it. So no one's perfect, just keep learning and
But that's the way that's the way it goes, and that's why, like we said earlier, it's so satisfying. You still get a hit of that gratification once you pop up. It's like yes, I did it again.
I'm so
Never.
grateful for that too. Like man, I don't know that like what I've done to deserve to being able to experience this. Like it's such when you really sit back and like think about what we're doing every time we go out there, like
Fascinating.
it's just fascinating, man. It's really crazy that we get to experience this, and you know, who knows what the next generation of the sport will look like. I mean, it's gonna be wild, man. I think people are eventually gonna be like, you know, breaking 1 minute kilometers or something like that, or like, traveling for 100 miles like they did the other day, like from Oahu to Kauai,
Yeah.
without an assist, people start doing that stuff. Oh, actually, you've got Andrew Reedhead did 200 kilometers the other day
Jeez.
in Western Australia with no boat support. Like people are gonna keep pushing, man. It's just the nature of humanity, I guess.
It's an exciting time just to see our sport explode pretty much like,
Yeah,
every month in some way, whether it's gear, growth in numbers, new
yeah,
places to downwind, and like you said, all these accomplishments and accolades.
yeah. I think my main mission right now in is getting it to grow a little bit more in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico.
Yeah.
I've been, um, a couple of people that like have been downwinding for a while, and like we just it seems to like come like grow, and then suddenly it contracts again, and again like we have this unique challenge where people are far apart from one another. So to get everyone in, there's a crew on the East Coast, West Coast, North Coast. So to get everyone to forge a community is kind of a little bit harder. But little by little, like, the East Coast guys, uh, I took a couple of them under my wing, and now they've got a couple of people under their wing, so like it just keeps multiplying itself. And we found that spot down south that's good for learners. Hopefully, that's also like something that
Pays off.
um,
Yeah.
can build a community down there. So, um, because we get decent conditions, man. It's been a weird year, an off year, I would say. But we get decent conditions for downwinding, and there's a lot of variety here. There's a lot of runs that you can choose to do. Where it doesn't matter where you live on the island, there's an option for you.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
That's it. Hey, well,
hopefully more growth.
that'll be your mission, man. And it's just, just growing the community. I mean, and not to tie it back, but to tie it back to jujitsu, man. Like if
Yeah.
you show up to school and you only got the same 4 or 5 people that you're rolling with, yeah, it's great. But like, man, it's cool when you show up one night or when you go in daytime, whenever you train, and you get like a nice variety of different rounds, and you're like, wow, like my moves here worked on this guy, this didn't work so good, and it just yeah, just having a variety of different roles and drilling partners and sparring partners, it just makes you an overall better um practitioner of jiu-jitsu, and likewise in downwinding. I've learned so much from all my friends back here, and whether it be style, technique,
Hmm.
approach to downwinding, gear, theories on gear, and just it's good to have friends to push it with, and explore new runs, and just have goals, and then on top of that, just having so much fun. It's just, for us, it's you know we have this group chat, and it goes off every day, whether we're bantering or setting up
Yeah.
runs. But it's like, this intimate group of like 30 to 40 people that we just downwind all the time, and
Yeah.
it's awesome, man. You never would have imagined. So hey, that's your mission for PR, man. And I got high hopes and high expectations for you guys, man. You're
Yeah, we're working on it.
a great
We're working
ambassador
on it.
and a great Voyager, and I feel like you guys will for sure cultivate a solid, strong community down there. So
We're working our way there, man.
yeah.
We're working our way there.
Any
It's good
any
stuff.
um any plans for you to come out to Hawaii or do any of the races again? Or is it was that kind of like a one-off thing where like, yeah, man, I did it and I'm good? Or like, is it something that you see yourself doing every year and want to come out and
Uh, yeah, no, I I don't know that I can not return to Hawaii. Like that's just like such an incredible overall experience. It's honestly it's kind of uh enters my mind quite frequently, just like what I felt there, and how I returned from Hawaii. Actually, it's a weird thing. I feel like I became a way better foiler in the little time that I spent there. And I came back here and I was like, whoa, like I could tell I had improved.
yeah.
And it was partially the conditions, but I think it's just that I was around the best of the best in the world, you know.
Mhm.
Um, of course the Hawaiian crew, but then also like the whole world of downwind foiling was there. Like, the best of the best, really. Europeans, Australians,
The
Hawaiians,
Asians.
Americans. Tahitians. I did that North Shore run with the Tahitians. That was an awesome run. Part of absorbing that is extremely addictive to me. So I'm definitely coming back for more for sure. Like this year and the year after that. Hopefully every year is like a thing, like
Yeah.
spend 2 or 3 weeks in Hawaii for the race and um because that's a beautiful community, man. You know what? I'm super grateful to be a part of this global downwinding community because I don't think that I've ever felt a part of something uh like so on the ground floor of it, like we're still such a young sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyone who's like really downwinding quite a bit is
Like,
in it. It's
yeah.
it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah. Like I said, man, it doesn't matter how good, or how fast, how many times, but like if we're foiling right now and we're downwinding, each each one of us, we're all pioneers right now for the next generation. You know what I
That's
mean?
crazy, man. That's
It's
so
wild.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's so cool.
All right,
Yeah.
man. Any last words before we sign off?
Man, thank you so much for having me. Voyager has been an integral part of my journey since day one, literally. And yeah, you really are like, I mean, this is speaking to you and to Voyager through you because I know that's like your freaking passion project.
Yeah.
Um, just so grateful for what you do. You're like a pillar in this community, so I hope you can continue to grow that and cherish it and enjoy it and love it to your fullest capacity, for the rest of your downwinding days, man. Long live Voyager. Those are my last words.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's the kind of like what keeps me so stoked and like just heartfelt about the sport and the community. It's just,
Yeah.
it's amazing, from the
I'm
people.
trying to get all the collection of hats. Like I want all of them. Just to say that like I've got like the collection.
Oh,
So
tell
keep
was it your jujitsu person that had the Talus Crew leopard hat in there? That was a fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I told him he can't wear it. He can't wear it until he's done a dry run or something. I was just joking with him, but I think he knows already. He's like, "Oh, he's just got it in the spot there and he looks at it every day. He's like, I'm coming for you. Once I know how to downwind, I'm gonna be able to wear you. And that's not real. Like, if you want to like buy your Voyager hats and use them, even if you can't foil to save your life, it's all good. Like, but I think he has that sort of as a like, okay,
Motivating
that
factor.
hat,
Yeah.
I can only wear that hat once I've gotten to a certain level, and that's pretty
It,
funny.
it's kind of like jujitsu, right? Like a lot of times
Yeah, that's the belt.
yeah, it's the belt, man. Like it's like you think you're ready for the next level, but you're not. But you're like, I don't like. It's like it comes with a lot of responsibility, like when you wear a black
Yeah,
belt, you're like, man, like it's you're putting that on. It's a big target on your back. It's a lot of responsibility, like you're a sound, well-oiled machine. But it's funny, like I used to laugh at that when people would hit me up like, hey, like, can I get a hat? Like, I promise I won't wear it till I make a run. And it's classic, man. We got a amazing and unique community, and I love it, man. But
yeah.
hey, well,
Good
thanks for your
stuff,
time,
Sim.
Gio, man.
No
Yeah,
problem.
man,
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you out here in Hawaii again, and continuing to build the friendships with you and a lot of the Voyagers around the world. And it's been an amazing journey, and stick with it, man. Um, I can really tell that you're like a soul surfer or a soul foiler, man. Just going out by yourself, and like I said, big props to you for trekking and climbing that mountain solo, man. Like a lot of us, it took we needed our Sherpas or we needed our crews, but for soul surfers like you, man, it's a big salute. So stoked for you, man.
Thank you, Sim. And the best wishes to you, your family, all the crew in Hawaii. Um, can't wait to see you guys again.
All right, man. Have a good evening, man.
All right. Thanks.